right, so I think we're
Are
good
we
to go.
live yet?
No.
Are we live yet?
Hi, we're getting there.
How would I know?
Uh, okay, I'm gonna press that button and then we're gonna go live.
Good. I'm totally ready, and I
You
will not behave.
have your drink already. Okay. All
I have a solo cup of water. Mike didn't bring any beers.
right. Oh no. Okay. I'm getting the circling button. Thank you for joining us. I'm here with Molly Joyce and Chad Kinsey. After a double premiere of Molly's new piece for for electric guitar. This is the last Soloing 2020 conversation. The time just flew by. Don't know where it went, but we're at the end of summer, the last Thursday of August. Um, and Molly, thanks so much for writing this. Such a cool piece, such a great piece.
Oh,
Um,
no, thank you.
yeah, and Chad, do you want to tell us a little bit about how you prepared for this piece and how it was for you to play it not once but twice?
Well, I'll I'll confess that I kind of got to choose first on the composers, and there's a lot of great guitarists and great guitar writers in that composer lineup that we did this summer, and they all scared me to death. So I wanted to pick somebody who didn't play guitar to see what that would be. And I heard Molly write something for you and Kathy Supovi. And I'd heard that piece, and I'd heard the one that Darren Lynn played with you in New York. And I really liked where that was going, so I'm really glad that she wrote it. And I had to come up with a tuning that worked because it's only 4 pitches, as she would tell you. 4 pitches, but make the most of them. And then it was like looking for the right sounds. I think the first time I played it for her, I had a bunch of lower sounds and much more pleasant sound. And playing it like an old hippie. But we changed all that and we made it sound kind of like static electricity, where it really just crackles. There's a lot more dynamics written in the piece than you actually heard tonight. But they'll come in along the way, Molly. I'm not abandoning. I'll bring them along as we go.
The lifetime piece.
Just about survival, on the first run through.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was looking for sounds, and then I thought it was fun to switch guitars on it. I'm still trying to find which one's right. They both seem right for different parts of it right now to me. I'm notorious for playing a lot of different guitars unnecessarily and kind of throw that at it. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that was a great idea, changing guitars. It kind of ties in with the parrot that you played. Because our parrot's music is eminently adaptable to almost any kind of instrumentation. I mean, the piece you played is really just for solo piano. It's a very simple piece. So basically the drone, what's become the drone, is a pedal point in the bass of the piano, right? It's just an octave, and as we know, the piano's sounds decay as soon as you play them. So basically, it's most like the idea of a drone. It's the idea of a pedal point, because by the time you reach the second stave, it's gone. And many people have done the drone thing and tried to sustain that somehow. But that the third time around, you added that harmony that completely took me by surprise. You put in a chord, or it sounded like a chord, and it almost sounded like a choir, like a chorus or something. That was pretty cool. Really enjoyed that.
When I was playing it on the Evo, or when I was playing it chordal.
No, the last time, the third time through, you put a different kind of a drone in there, and then the harmony disappeared, and then it became just the B. But
mostly I'm taking the guitar part of it and leaning on the guitar until it starts to wipe out, and then I just shoved it all into the delay and just put this
Yeah.
big trashy chord out there,
Yeah.
but slowly went to just the organ again.
Yeah, that was cool. I really
M100 bought in the hills of Lebanon City in
like
Pennsylvania for $100. Moving that thing even 3 feet to get it there was
Oh
about the
wow.
hardest thing I had to
Yeah,
do.
that's a really heavy instrument.
Playing it.
Yeah, we've moved that.
Yeah, it just has a vibe to it. You know, there's adding amps and adding a microKORG in there,
Yeah.
and my Magic Rabbit is there.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. Um, yeah, your experience with the piece, with Molly's piece, like working on it, and we talked about it as you were working on it, and the for you the virtuosity part, I think really ties in with um, I don't know if I should call it a philosophy or an approach or what you've been doing, Molly, for the last 2-3 years, the the perspective you've chosen in your composer and performer path. This dichotomy. And so I think there's several things I'd like to tie in together. The first thing I noticed when I didn't really know your music, it was a few years ago, I was listening to a bunch of pieces, and I noticed the titles right away. So a lot of your titles juxtapose opposing terms, oppositions, light and dark, or on and off, and that kind of thing. Um, and then you have this beautiful TEDx talk that juxtaposes
Yeah, thank you.
vulnerability and virtuosity. So if you could talk a little bit about all of that and how you approach composition with your life and all that, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. I think just with the titles, I think I don't have like a single answer to that right now, but I think as I look back, I feel like a lot of that stems from kind of my own experience, kind of with binaries and directly with my own body. I have an impaired left hand from a previous car accident, and so I think obviously, and that was about 20 years ago when I was younger and a child, so I've been kind of living with this body for a while, although it took within the past like 3 years or so when I really discovered like disability studies and kind of the social construction of disability, which really accelerated a lot of that in my practice. But I think when I look back, I've always been obsessed with these kind of like binaries, like the range going high to low, or which happened like in this piece too, as you might have heard, or and also these kind of very obsessive like physicality of my pieces, like physical motivations to start them, like my hands will switch places, or the live performer and the backing track will switch musical roles, like not necessarily starting with a purely musical motivation, like, oh, I love this chord and it's going to modulate here and progress here and come back around, or more just these kind of abstract physical motivations. And then more kind of countering this expected notion of this kind of finessed physical virtuosity. I think especially classical music has such an obsession with,
Mm,
which I think is often, this is my very like biased opinion, but I think it's
yeah.
reiterated so often with even new pieces because these instruments are built for very, I would like to say, like very specific bodies of very specific abilities, and in my opinion don't allow a lot of room for leeway, I think, for new types of virtuosity to emerge. And I say all this still very much like emerging idea of mine. I feel like I don't have like a full like doctoral dissertation yet or something on it, but I like to explore that. And even I think with Chad's piece, just like, of course, I probably drove him crazy with all the repetition, but like, I think you expect like, and I also think just compositionally, like when I started this, I was like, yeah, I felt like, especially during this time of COVID, I just want to do stuff I've always wanted to try, like only having 4 pitches or something, like not this natural expectation, like, oh, it's going to develop and modulate and cover all this. Like, I always felt like sometimes as a composer, there's these expectation that a piece has to do everything, has to have all the dynamics, all the chord, be like kind of perfect, check all the boxes in that way. And it's like, no, I just really wanted to shed all of that, I think, and really just focus again on these 4 pitches and their octave transpositions, and see where you can go with that.
Yeah. I think it ties in, when you talk about disability, what I like about it is that you widen it. You don't restrict it to a specific kind of disability or our notion when we talk about disability in the real world. But it seems like in music and in art, you open it up to, and I guess a better word for this is maybe vulnerability, which you've used. Um, and Chad's been playing with us. It's not a new thing, but he's been playing with us for 8 years, since the beginning of the electroacoustic Naked Eye. And since the beginning, we had a couple of rock musicians playing with us, and they were thrown into a world that was completely, not completely, but pretty foreign to them in terms of being
yeah,
active participants, right? So you're playing in the rock world, you have a certain aesthetic and you have a certain way of approaching music, and especially non-notated music. And then you're thrown into this world where everything mostly is notated, and you
yeah,
have to follow certain rules. And then there's the technical aspect, right?
yeah,
And what I've discovered over the years is that non-classical musicians come to notated music in a very different way, and also to the techniques that are required um, of classical musicians. You know, we have it's been ingrained in us. We study for it and we practice hours for this virtuosity,
yeah,
which the rock musicians don't. You know, they do it something different. And for
yeah,
me, this journey of 8 years of bringing together musicians from completely different worlds has been really interesting. You know, a lot
yeah,
of the pathways that we think in classical mode, oh, we have to compromise here or we have to compromise there, has slowly switched to, oh, we can maybe find something different, a different
yeah,
pathway, something even more interesting because everything else has been done and we don't want
yeah,
to recreate that, right? So when you
yeah,
talk about finding a new pathway, it really resonates in that kind of experience for me. Um,
yeah.
and going a little bit further, do you try when you perform on your organ? Do you call it a toy organ or what's the
Yeah,
is it a toy organ?
has many names. That's
Um, do you try to push yourself to find different ways of playing it or different ways of manipulating it? What's your experimentation with it?
Sure. I think to be honest, when I first started playing on it more just like solo, like with the organ and electronics, like kind of a backing track, I thought I was going to pursue like more different ways with my hands and stuff, and I'm sure I have in some way, but I think my practice is more expanded to include like singing with it,
Mm,
and lyrics I write, and also I perform a lot. Like my ideal performance setup is with video, with open kind of captions of the lyrics I'm singing, and so more in the pursuit of the most like accessible performance possible, I think, which I definitely acknowledge that just having open captions, the lyrics is just like one baby tiny step like towards that in a way, but I guess that's what I'm most interested in now, I think, in a way, because I think I started realizing like with my hands, and I don't know, maybe just making lame excuses right now, but I started realizing I think people can't, unless you're sitting literally right next to me, it's hard, and you have perfect eyesight, it's hard to see exactly what's going on with my hands. Like I think it doesn't really elicit really what I'm trying to like emote with that, and I felt like the voice and my lyrics with that, either my own lyrics or with other writers, and then bringing in video again with those open captions, and then the interaction usually of like my hands or other material, I think brings in that detailed intimate perspective. I think I'm really going for one, and just like, I don't know, forcing someone to stare at a disability for that long or whatever for the length of the video, but also I think in my ideal, like creating art that I feel like only a disabled artist could create, that won't be so called, like I feel like some of the videos I create, I'm not saying they're the greatest works ever, but would be kind of boring with like two regular hands in a way, and creating work that can't really be compared to the so-called normal, that won't be like, oh, that's great, she can play piano too or something, but it can really be in a lane of its own, which I feel like sometimes holds, at least for myself, like disability back in a way, because people are just trying to get you back to the so-called normal. Like you can
right.
still play these instruments, and again, just going in a lane of its own.
Yeah, that's what's really fascinating about your approach to disability is that
No,
it seems like you're using it as a gateway to something else, to something new, and not trying to
yeah,
replicate something that's already been done or trying to go down the pathway people have gone before. Um,
yeah, hopefully.
so in that vein, how do you see the next 5 years or the next 10 years? What's your ultimate, um, I don't want to say goal,
No,
but
yeah,
the direction, is
5-year
it more of
plan.
this? I mean, it seems like your video, images, your music is very visual for me. Um,
Oh,
is that the more of like combination video, visual, color sound, is that something that's going to develop?
Yeah, hopefully, definitely in this more like interdisciplinary pursuit, I like to say, like in always in pursuit of disability as a creative source, and again pursuing this kind of interdisciplinary medium for like disability aesthetics, but also accessibility considerations, and trying to create like multiple sensory inputs and outputs, interpretations, and not having or trying to get rid of these assumptions of like the artists and audience alike, these sensory assumptions that you're going to have perfect eyesight, perfect hearing, and allowing, again, just these multiple sensory inputs and outputs, which I really love. Like, even if it's just like with my performances, like with the sound and the visual, at least having an option or two, like not just having this one way of receiving it, which again I feel like drives me crazy. And I mean, I certainly still enjoy, at least right now, like creating purely musical projects or for other people, and then working on my own practice with more video, having more flexibility there, and always collaborating with other artists, like performers, especially artists of other disciplines. So I think I hope to keep doing that more and more. And I also I'm currently developing a more communally engaged project, which interviews disabled people on like what is care for you, what is access for you, these kind of broad yet disability specific terms that can be really very open, not like a yes or no question, more very open. And especially in this time of COVID, I think these questions are even more relevant. So I hope to do more communal engagement in my work too, because that's, I don't know, I love interrogating my own experience, but I love hearing about others. I love interviewing people, and I really want to try to highlight their perspectives as much as possible, and in the most like organic and authentic way possible, just kind of hopefully enhancing it with my artistic work, not like overtaking it, or if that makes sense. I've always been like a little
Yeah.
hesitant about communal engagement or something, or because I feel like it's their perspective, but I think through this approach, I don't know, let's see, it's very developing, but I just try to enhance their words through my music. And
Well, you have a unique vantage point, so it's not as if you're coming from the outside and trying
yeah.
to put something on their experience. I mean, you have a very personal experience with this.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it sort of it makes sense, right, for you to try to recreate
Yeah, I hope so.
your
Yeah.
voice. Um,
Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, with Chad's piece, do you see any visuals with that, or do you have any? Um, I mean, you wrote it as a purely instrumental piece, right? Or Chad, do you have any? Do you have any?
I am the visual. I am the visual. What else do
Yeah,
I
I
have
like
to do? I'll wear a different colored shirt next time.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Come on.
Yeah, just all the different guitars.
Right, right.
No, I mean, I could be wrong in this. Maybe I should have watched the video more carefully, but I think I just had this idea of the visual, like just this very just singular hand position in a way, that doesn't move that much, like very static, but then eventually does move with the range going down, I think. And,
The trick is your hand kind of gets locked into a
yeah,
vice. So you start to wonder as you approach the part where it has to move, is it
yeah,
going to move?
yeah,
I'm going to tell it to move, but will it actually move?
yeah,
And then I would try, remember my first guitar teacher saying, you got to relax when you play. Look at Eddie Van Halen. He's so relaxed when he plays, But relaxing on this piece doesn't work. It's just, I have to play it. I have to keep the tension in my body to put the tension in the music, at least
mm,
for me to get close to doing it the way it's got to be done. And then that results in issues with the hand just locking up and
Yeah.
getting it to move.
But also, you haven't had that much time with it. So I find like pieces that are relentless, like are technically, physically challenging in terms of like marathon like, right?
Yeah.
You can train your
There's a
muscles.
moment in there.
You can train your muscles to have endurance, but it takes time. It just takes
yeah,
time
There's
to.
a moment in there that reminds me of Kate Moore's Rescue, right?
oh,
When you played Zuchain, there's an emotional moment that happens in
Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah,
yeah,
Kate
it just
Moore is
happens. I'm
another
like, ooh, now I have one of those kind of cool
is
things.
another composer.
Yeah, yeah, that happens, and you like build up. It's when the distortion comes back on
mm.
after the wobbly part. The guitar's wobbling, that wobbly sound, and when it comes back on, it's like, wow, it's really cool. And then you're just off to the races. And that's kind of the easy part too. Once you get there, you're kind of all right. Now I'm going to just get to the end. It's just a rock thing now. The hard part is the clean parts, the really clean parts that are just kind of.
You're totally exposed. You can't hide.
I was thinking to myself, I would love to see Robert Fripp play this. Somebody with a really good right hand technique that's super reliable, would really give you that machine-like kind of thing. So,
Yeah, Molly, you could send it to him.
I'd love to do that again.
Yeah. A little promotion.
Yeah. Bob, if you're watching, it's okay.
Yeah.
In 3 years, you can go ahead.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I had a question while you were talking, and now I totally forgot. Actually, it was a good. Oh, yeah, right. I remember Kate Moore. That was one thing we had talked about it, Chad. But one thing I was thinking is that both her music and your music, Molly, have this very emotional, very strong emotional content. I don't know if you would agree, but that's one thing that struck me when I was playing Kate's music is that there's always this build up. There's always a narrative. There's a story in there. It's not like for me, it's not like Philip Glass. It's not even like Steve Reich. Even though you can, there's this minimalist aesthetic that's similar, but very different. There's a really emotional, and I even say sometimes in Kate Moore's music, like romantic build up to a very. Is that something that's conscious in what you do? Is that something you aim for? That emotional build up?
Yeah, I think just that, I mean, of course, I love Kate's music, like everything I know, and I was lucky to know her a little bit, especially from studying in the Netherlands. And I always remember one of my teachers there said that, I mean, this was a couple of years ago, I was still kind of a student. He said, "Oh, your music is always like very emotional, like hers, or like you just get into it right away, or something like that, like even from the first beat or something."
Yeah.
And I always love that about her music and even my own. And I always felt like I've always been attracted to, ever since even undergrad, like music that really takes you into a world, like even if it's a very soft world or loud world, like right away. I feel like I had another teacher once too that, I mean, this might be too much of a steadfast rule. It said to like never start a piece at like mezzo forte or just like I don't like you're like just interrupting a conversation. Like I want you to be at the beginning
Yeah.
of the conversation, even if it's boring or exciting or something like that. And I really like, and I don't know, I guess I always feel like for myself, like this might sound cheesy, but like go big or go home or something, like why not, like why hold back, I think. And yeah, that's just what I think I've been always attracted to, even in music and other art forms, or something that just really is striking, like even in simplicity or like maximalist whatever aesthetics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have you here, Molly. Just selfishly, can you talk a little bit about On and Off? So that's the piece that you wrote
Oh,
for
sure.
for Naked Eye and Kathy Supovi. So basically, it's for two pianists and the chamber ensemble. And I just realized that in one of the requirements I had for this commission was to write for two pianists on one piano. And it wasn't on purpose, but I guess I kind of created this tension where if both pianists are on the keyboard, there's going to be some kind of weirdness going on, right? Or stepping over one another. I don't know if you thought about it that way while writing the piece, but there are definitely moments of,
Yeah, sorry, it seems like a little while ago since I ever
It was, yeah.
wrote it. But, I remember, I mean, was very intimidated first because I don't play piano as well, or especially with like my hands. And I always get intimidated about like what to write for the left hand and everything. But I wanted to really take this idea of, well, again, I think wanting to start like as intense and kind of full out as possible, and this idea of like well, first of all, that the two pianists start on the piano and then they end up away, like kind of be what you wouldn't expect, like playing out that binary process. And also just even from the first couple measures of this on and off with, I think it's piano one, like on the downbeats and the other one on the offbeats, like just literally in that kind of visual action, which again, like is tricky, I think, unless you're like sitting right next to the pianist, maybe seeing that play out. If you're in another area of the audience, you might not see it as much. But just going there and having that drive the piece and kind of the ensemble, like just kind of helps with that accompaniment, I guess, the whole time, if I remember it correctly. But so yeah, but I wanted to do really something unexpected. I think I was like toying with again, I love these binary forms. I was like, well, maybe let's start off the piano because I knew like toy piano and inside the piano is an option or these kind of different extended.
Yeah.
But then I always like starting more like traditionally in a way, kind of like, oh, everyone's at the piano, this is a piece, and then all of a sudden, like by the end, you're like, how did she get to the toy piano or something like that, or how did they end up off it?
Yeah, there's definitely in the middle part some tension between Kathy and me,
Mhm.
like playing over each other's hands in the middle,
Yeah,
and then
I think
trying
that's where
to,
the range is contracting. But yeah,
yeah, trying to
Mhm.
also get that rhythmic thing going where we're off each other,
Yeah,
right? Very precisely. Um, it's a fun piece. We should do it again. We just, I think we just managed to
uh-huh.
do the premiere. We've only played it once, but we'll definitely
Oh
do
yeah, uh-huh.
it again.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it's got a great beginning.
yeah. So for those of you listening, I put the link of Molly's TEDx in the thread. So check it out. It's really a beautiful piece, and I think you'll understand a lot of where she's coming from. It's a really good starting point, I think, to understand where she's coming from. She really put it all in a nutshell right there, and it's not very long. It's worth watching, and she plays too, so which is really a treat to watch. Um, is there anything else any of you want to say, or
I just want to say thank you both so much for hosting this. I'm really so honored to be included, and yeah. Mhm.
I'm
oh,
looking
okay?
forward to the recording project of it.
What? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think we're
It's
gonna go into recording this pretty
yeah,
soon.
putting it all
Yeah.
together in a doable thing, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
But,
When I get
you
that.
know,
But so thank you, Molly. This has been really great. I'm sure
Oh, yeah, thank you.
we'll work together again. I hope to meet you in person at some.
Yeah, I know. I know.
it's been it's been a
Yeah,
while.
I love listening. Yeah. No, I love listening to the Stanford performance a couple months ago.
Oh,
And that was
thanks. Yeah, that also seems
really,
like it was another lifetime
I
ago.
know. I was gonna be like, wow, that seems so long ago.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, as has been mentioned, this is the last conversation we're having. It's also the end of the summer. I hope all of you, if you're going back to school, stay safe. Going back to work, stay safe, and hopefully we'll get out of this all together in one piece. Stay tuned for the next Naked Eye. I don't know when it's going to be, but we'll be back at some point with something. In the meantime, take care and see you soon. Bye.
Mhm.
all right.